The quiet sound of the air conditioning in my office was the complete opposite of the storm of thoughts racing through my mind. I'm Lily, a 28-year-old lawyer. My life now is so different from the chaos of my childhood, a past I've kept hidden, even from the people closest to me. The peace in my office was broken by the sound of my phone ringing. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but something about it felt strangely familiar. I picked up the phone slowly, trying to keep my voice professional, though my nerves showed. "Lily, it's your dad," said the voice on the other end. He sounded nervous, and it only made me feel more uneasy. A cold shiver ran down my spine. It had been over 10 years since I last heard that voice. The voice that used to mean love and safety but now only brought memories of betrayal and hurt. "Why are you calling me?" I asked, my voice sharp, cutting through the silence that followed his greeting. "I'm in trouble, Lily, financial trouble. I need your help," he said, his voice trembling. Despite his sincere tone, all I could feel was anger and resentment bubbling up inside me. "My help? After all these years, now you need me?" I responded, disbelief and frustration mixing in my voice. "Yes, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. I'm really in a tough spot," he said, sounding desperate. "You stopped being my father a long time ago. You can't just call me now and expect me to help," I said coldly, my voice firm. There was a long silence on the line, heavy and painful. "Lily, please, I'm still your dad," he said, trying to reach for something that had long been gone. Hearing him say dad felt strange, almost uncomfortable. "A dad? You gave that up when you chose her over me," I said, all the years of hurt spilling out. "You're my daughter," he pleaded. "I thought you, but I was wrong," I interrupted, cutting him off. "You made your choice years ago, now I've made mine." His voice was a mix of pleading and sadness. "Lily, I'm sorry, I just need this one favor." The word sorry hung in the air, but it didn't change anything. "Sorry doesn't fix the past. I can't help you," I said firmly, and then I hung up. Before I turned 10, my life was full of love and happiness. My parents and I lived in a small rented house, and every day felt special. My mom, kind and full of life, made every moment joyful, and my dad, who used to be fun and caring, would spend time teaching me things or playing games. Our home was full of laughter and dreams, a safe place where everything felt perfect. But everything changed when my mom passed away. Our home, once filled with love, became a quiet reminder of her absence. I remember walking through the empty rooms, feeling the weight of her loss everywhere. It was hard for all of us, especially for my dad, who lost the love of his life. But his grief didn't seem to last long, which confused me. Just a few months later, he brought home Sarah, a woman who was about to change everything. I remember the day he introduced her. "Lily, this is Sarah, she's going to be living with us," he said one evening, his voice lacking the warmth it once had. I looked at Sarah, hoping for some sign that she would be kind or friendly, but I didn't feel any of that. Her presence felt cold, and there was something unsettling about the way she looked at me. From that moment, I knew things were never going to be the same. "Hello, Lily," Sarah said, her voice smooth but lacking any real warmth. Her smile, instead of being comforting, seemed to hide something dark. Over the next few days, the house felt different, like the walls were shrinking away from her presence. The happy memories of the past faded, replaced by a constant feeling of discomfort that filled every room. I remember staring at Sarah, trying to find something nice about her, but every look, every move, made me feel like she was against me. It was clear she wasn't here to fill the gap my mom had left but to take control of the story, a story where I wasn't welcome. As I watched her walk around our home, the home that used to feel so safe and warm, I couldn't shake the feeling that her being here was the start of something bad. The way she looked at me, like there was something she wasn't saying, didn't make me feel hopeful for the future. The days after Sarah moved in felt like I was stuck in a nightmare I couldn't escape. The house, once filled with my mom's laughter, now felt cold and unfriendly. Sarah's presence cast a shadow over everything, turning even simple routines into challenges. One morning, when I sat down for breakfast, I noticed my food tasted unusually salty. "Sarah, did you put too much salt in this?" I asked, unsure of what I was even asking. "Oh, did I? It must have been a mistake. Just eat it, Lily, don't be so picky," she answered, brushing me off like I was being unreasonable. The problems kept growing, each one feeling worse than the last. One day, I found my favorite dress ruined after the laundry. "Sarah, my dress is all faded. What happened?" I asked, holding it up, now discolored and unwearable. She just shrugged, like it didn't matter. "Maybe the washing machine's broken, or maybe you should stop wearing such childish clothes," she said with a dismissive tone. I felt a rush of frustration but knew arguing would only make things worse. Feeling helpless, I turned to my dad, hoping he'd see through her act. "Dad, Sarah is ruining my things. She's always mean to me," I said one evening, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and sadness. My dad's response wasn't what I expected. "Lily, you're just imagining things. Sarah is trying to fit into our family. Stop causing trouble," he said firmly, his words cutting deep. "But, Dad, it's the truth," I argued, but he wouldn't listen. "Enough, Lily, I don't want to hear any more of this," he snapped, his voice getting louder. Each day felt like a battle, trying to deal with Sarah's hostility and my dad's indifference. The home that used to feel safe now felt like a trap. I started spending more time in my room, trying to escape the tension in the air. Living in that house, I felt lonely and misunderstood. The warmth and happiness that used to fill the walls were replaced with fear and worry. Every day, I wished for the past, for the times when my mom's smile could light up the whole room, a far cry from the darkness that now filled the house. Living with Sarah became an everyday struggle. Her hostility towards me grew from cruel words to physical abuse. It started small, a pinch here, a twist there, all in places I could hide under my clothes. The pain was sharp, a cruel reminder that I was powerless around her. I began to find ways to avoid her, always aware of where she was in the house. I'd take long ways to my room or wait until she was distracted before I moved. But sometimes, she would catch me off guard, and those moments always led to pain. One day, while I was reading quietly in the living room, Sarah walked in and, without warning, pinched my arm hard, her nails digging in. I winced in pain but stayed silent. She looked at me with a cold, victorious smile before walking away. During one of Grandma's rare visits, she noticed how I flinched when Sarah's voice echoed through the house. "Lily, is everything okay at home?" Grandma asked, concern in her voice. I looked at her, wanting to tell her the truth, but fear and the need to protect her from worry kept me silent. "Yes, Grandma, everything's fine, just a lot of schoolwork," I lied, offering her a weak smile. She seemed unsure but didn't ask more. I felt guilty for lying to her but couldn't bear the thought of making her worry. That evening, as Grandma left, I saw Sarah watching from the window, a look of satisfaction on her face. It was like she enjoyed knowing she had control over me, that she could hurt me and I couldn't stop her. Her triumphant look made it clear she was the one in charge, and I was just someone to be hurt. I went to my room, feeling trapped in a cycle of pain and silence. The bruises from Sarah's pinches and twists hurt, but it was the emotional pain that really tore me apart. School became my only escape, a place where I could briefly forget about the misery at home, but even there, the weight of my struggles started to creep in. My teacher, Mrs. Carter, a kind and caring woman, began to notice changes in me. One day, as I handed in my homework, she gently grabbed my wrist and noticed the bruises on my arm. "Lily, what happened here? These look like bruises," she said, her voice full of concern. I quickly pulled my arm back, trying to hide the bruises. "It's nothing, Mrs. Carter, I fell while playing," I lied, avoiding her gaze. Mrs. Carter didn't seem convinced. "Lily, if something is wrong or if someone is hurting you, you can tell me. It's important to speak out," she said, her eyes searching mine for the truth. I wanted to tell her everything about Sarah and how I lived in fear every day, but I couldn't find the words. Instead, I forced a smile. "Really, Mrs. Carter, I'm fine. It was just an accident," I said. She gave me a long, thoughtful look before nodding. "All right, Lily, but remember, my door is always open. You're not alone," she said, giving me a reassuring smile. I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. Her kindness made it harder to pretend everything was okay. As I walked home, Mrs. Carter's words echoed in my mind. I felt grateful for her concern but also incredibly lonely. The idea of telling someone the truth about my life at home was terrifying. I was scared of what Sarah might do if she found out. That night at dinner, I stayed quiet, lost in my thoughts about Mrs. Carter's offer to help. Sarah noticed my silence. "Why are you so quiet tonight, Lily? Lost your voice?" she asked, mocking me. I shook my head and continued eating, trying to make myself as small as possible, hoping she wouldn't notice me. Later that night, as I lay in bed, the weight of everything felt even heavier. Mrs. Carter's concern showed me that there were people who cared, but the fear of what might happen if I told someone kept me silent. I was stuck between wanting to tell the truth and being scared of what Sarah might do in response. The day Mrs. Carter decided to talk to my dad was the hardest day I'd faced. I sat nervously in the principal's office, dreading the moment my dad would arrive. When he walked in, his face was stern, full of anger and embarrassment. "What's this about, Lily? Why am I here at your school?" he demanded, his voice sharp. I glanced at Mrs. Carter, hoping she would help. Swallowing hard, I tried to speak. "Dad, Mrs. Carter saw. She saw the bruises," I stammered, feeling his gaze burn into me. Before I could say more, he interrupted, clearly angry. "Bruises? What are you talking about? Are you making things up again?" Mrs. Carter stepped in, speaking firmly but calmly. "Mr. Davis, I'm concerned about Lily's safety. The bruises on her arm don't look like accidents. We need to address this." My dad's face grew darker with anger. "She's perfectly fine at home. Are you spreading lies about our family?" He turned to me, disappointment written all over his face. The tears I had been holding back started to fall. "It's not lies, Dad. Sarah, she's been hurting me," I finally said, my voice shaky. His face showed pure disbelief. "Sarah, that's ridiculous. She's been kind to you. I won't have you saying these things about her." "But Dad, it's the truth," I cried, desperate for him to believe me. He stood up quickly, his patience running out. "Enough. Tell Mrs. Carter you made it all up," he ordered. I turned to Mrs. Carter, feeling helpless, and repeated what he said. She nodded, not saying anything. When we got home, he locked me in my room without another word. Through the door, I could hear Sarah's voice, sweet and fake, as she pretended to care. "I told you she's just seeking attention," Sarah said. I sat on my bed, feeling a deep sense of isolation and despair. The one person I thought I could count on, my dad, had turned his back on me. The walls of my room, once a place of refuge, now felt like a prison. I lay there, thinking about everything that had happened. The physical pain from Sarah's abuse was nothing compared to the emotional anguish of being disbelieved and punished by my own father. It was a painful realization that the person who was supposed to protect and love me unconditionally was now the source of my deepest hurt. The days following my confinement in my room were among the darkest I had ever known. Trapped and feeling completely alone, I realized my only hope lay with my grandmother, my dad's mother. She had always been kind and loving, but I'd never dared to burden her with my troubles. One evening, when I was sure Sarah and my dad were occupied, I gathered the courage to call my grandmother. My hands shook as I dialed her number. "Hello," her familiar, comforting voice came through the phone. "Grandma, it's me, Lily," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Lily, my dear, how are you?" she asked, her tone full of genuine care. Tears welled up in my eyes as I spoke. "Grandma, I need help. Can I come and stay with you for a while?" There was a brief silence on the other end. "What's wrong, Lily? Did something happen?" I took a deep breath, the words rushing out. "It's Sarah. She's been hurting me, and Dad won't believe me. I don't know what to do." I could hear the concern in her voice as she responded quickly. "Of course, my dear, you come right over. I'll take care of everything." The next day, my grandmother arrived. Despite her small frame, her presence filled the room as she confronted my dad with a strength I didn't expect. "Mark, I'm taking Lily with me. She's not safe here," she said firmly. My dad, taken aback, tried to protest. "Mom, you can't just take her. She's my daughter." "Your daughter, whom you failed to protect," she shot back sharply. "I won't stand by and let her suffer." Sarah attempted to intervene. "She's just a child making up stories. You can't believe her over us." Grandma turned to Sarah, her eyes sharp. "I know a scared child when I see one. Lily is coming with me, and if you try to stop me, I'll take this to the authorities." My dad, realizing defeat, didn't argue any further. As I packed my things, I saw Sarah's expression change from defiance to defeat. Leaving the house with my grandmother, I felt a heavy weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt safe. The car ride to Grandma's house was quiet, but her presence brought me comfort. Once we arrived, she turned to me and said, "You're safe now, Lily. You don't have to worry anymore." At Grandma's house, I found the love and security that had been missing in my life. It was a place where I could heal and rebuild my strength. The contrast between her nurturing home and the coldness of my father's house was stark. For the first time in a long while, I felt free from the fear and anxiety that had weighed me down. Years passed since I left my father's house to live with my grandmother. Her home had been a sanctuary, a place of healing and love. But, as time always does, it brought change. My beloved grandmother passed away, leaving a void in my heart. At the funeral, my father and Sarah showed up, their faces twisted with fake sorrow and a barely hidden eagerness. It was obvious they were more interested in what they might gain from her passing than in mourning her loss. After the funeral, as we gathered at Grandma's house, Sarah wasted no time. "Well, Lily, I suppose you'll be finding a new place to live now. This house and everything in it belongs to your father now," she said, her voice practically dripping with glee. My father nodded in agreement, his eyes scanning the room as if already planning what to do with the house. I couldn't help but smile, which seemed to confuse them. "Actually, that's where you're wrong," I said, my voice steady, surprising them. "What do you mean?" my dad asked, his face full of confusion. I took a deep breath and relished the moment. "Grandma left a will. She gave me the house and a substantial amount of money," I said, watching their faces shift from confusion to shock. But you're just a child. I'm your father. I should be the one in charge of your inheritance," my dad stammered, his entitlement clear.